Welcome, everyone. I can see lots of you joining. It's great to have you here. Uh, I'm Tom. I'm going to wait 1 or 2 minutes just to make sure that everyone who wants to be here can be, and then we are going to get started. Um, Actually, I mean, I can see those numbers ticking up all the way to where we're just about expecting. And I don't want to take up more of the middle of your day than I need to. So I think I might actually just dive right in. I can see all of our panelists are online as well. And so I'm going to kick us off. Welcome everyone to this webinar jointly hosted by Joseph and Actionstep about automation, about how we do automation in law firms, about why it matters, and about why it should matter to all of you. Um, just before we get started, I want to acknowledge that I am hosting this session from the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I want to acknowledge them as traditional custodians of the lands on which I work today in Melbourne. And I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which all of you work today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. All right, our panel today, an all-star panel to introduce you to. Um, I'd like to start by thanking them and introducing Will, who is a partner at Phillips Wilkins. Will has been a partner at Phillips Wilkins since 2019, I believe. Yep, got it right. He has a broad commercial practice across M&A, commercial agreements, leasing, litigation. One thing I will say about Phillips Wilkins is that they are a small firm, but they punch well above their weight. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Will about his experience with automation. We have Erica, head of growth at Joseph. She has a background as a commercial lawyer. She's actually done lots and lots of things, kind of worked everywhere, consulting, tech, law firms. Erica has more experience than most, helping new customers, firms interested in automation, work out where they should get started. And last but not least, Zahn, who is the Regional Vice President for Australia and New Zealand at Actionstep. He's been doing legal tech for more than 15 years. I've heard Zahn speak a few times, and just for me personally, Zahn is truly one of those trusted experts in what it takes to bring cloud-based technology solutions to law firms to help them drive innovation. And I feel very fortunate to have him here, to have all of the panelists here. So what are we actually talking about in the next 45 minutes or so? We're going to start broad. Why should you care about automation? How does automation impact law firms? Why is automation even better with integration? We're lucky today to have the perspectives of both an automation platform and a practice management platform to reflect on how the two things can work better together. And so you're going to get some of that kind of bird's eye view of what it means to build a tech ecosystem, a tech stack inside a law firm. Then we're going to get a little narrower. We're going to dive deeper into some real world use cases. Will is going to share those from his experience at Phillips Wilkins. And then we're going to throw to you for some Q&A. On that front, there should be a Q&A button that you can see as you've joined the webinar. Throw your questions in there whenever they pop into your head. At the end of the panel, I'm going to lead a Q&A with all of our panelists and make sure that I direct your questions to the right one. Please don't hold back on the questions. The more questions, the better. The curlier, the better. Let's see if we can surprise our panelists today. Okay. Just before I hand over to Erica, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is automation and AI. And I suppose one way of thinking about this is the differences between automation and AI. We talk so much about AI at the moment. It's very hard to go anywhere on the internet to be doing anything law firm or legal services related and not be inundated by AI news, not feel like you're kind of drowning in AI noise. And it'd be remiss of us not to reflect on where automation fits in amidst all of that noise. I think one of the ways that we've started thinking about it at Joseph, we started thinking about this in lots of ways, but one of the things that we think about is automation and AI are complementary. They each have their own role, but it's about understanding what the right use case is for the right technology. AI is just a tool, automation is just a tool. They aren't something that you go out and buy for the sake of it. They're something that you use to solve particular problems that you're having in your law firm. You have a problem or you want to achieve an outcome, you choose the right technology to help you do it. In the case of AI, often open-ended use cases where you're not sure exactly what the outcome is going to be every time make a lot of sense. Whereas automation often makes more sense where you have a well-defined workflow or a set of rules that you want to follow every single time to reach a predefined outcome. Both of them have the kinds of impact that we're excited about. Faster turnaround times for your clients, better experiences, less manual and menial work for all of you, more time to spend on client engagement, all of the things that we know make work more meaningful to all of you. Today, we're here to focus on the automation side of it. Our experience is that automation is a really great place to build a foundation for effective AI adoption. If you can get automation right, it forces you to really look closely at your workflows, your data, your templates, automate those that you can, and then start thinking about how AI can supercharge some of that work. The two they're not really different, right? They're actually complementary. And the way that they work together is, I think, one of the most exciting things about being a law firm leader at the moment, about having the opportunity to build the law firm of the future. So we're focusing on automation today, but it's not because we're not thinking about AI. It's because we need to think about which technology is the right technology for the problems we're trying to solve, and then build from there. I'm going to hand over to Erica now, who is going to start with that broad view on some of the pain points that automation can help solve for law firms, some of the benefits that your clients should experience if you can get this right. Over to you, Erica.
Thanks, Tom, for the introduction. And I second the request for curly questions. You'll see that some of the topics that we're going to talk about have themes, but sometimes there's truly novel things that come up in my conversations with customers, and I really welcome new approaches, new perspectives as well in the course of that. So I'm going to talk briefly about why firms seek to automate things. What are some of the pain points they're trying to solve for? The ways in which they're trying to, aiming to delight their clients, their staff, and to be more productive for the firm themselves. So we might start by looking a little bit into the data. And this draws from some of the research published earlier this year by our friends at Actionstep. And it's also reflected in the conversations that I have with firms every day. Essentially, these are the three areas that jump out to our firms as priorities for driving growth and profitability. And there's really three areas, with about 2/3 of firms reporting improving client satisfaction, recruiting and retaining their best staff, and managing the cost of business as their pathways for revenue growth and retention. If we take a moment and dig deeper into the data on opportunities and challenges, some themes start to crystallize. The first is that workload is seen as one of the greatest barriers to success. There's that need to reduce the burden of repetitive, high volume tasks, manual tasks. The second point is that workload issue applies equally to clients. So our clients, we see that clients want better convenience, more value additive experiences. They too don't want repetitious manual processes providing the same information in different ways. And finally, engaging work as a factor for staff retention. It's no surprise that staff want to do the high value work, the engaging work, rather than the manual work that's repetitious, that can be done in other ways. So if we bring that all together, how does automation make a difference? What are firms seeking to do? We see this happen in three ways. The first is to offload that repetitive work, the boring manual work that no one wants to do, and definitely not more than once or multiple times a day, whether that's staff or clients. The second part is drawing on that client aspect, enhancing the client experience. We know that client expectations are high. In this consumer world, we have digital tools at the ready, and clients want that from their law firms, whether they're businesses, whether they're people using law firms intermittently for the first time, perhaps, or once or twice in their lives for key milestone moments. They want that face-to-face advice and guidance that their lawyers provide, but they also want the digital convenience for those parts of the work that are able to be supported by those things. Questionnaires and forms, providing information, drawing upon that information time and time again, or getting more accessible access to legal content or knowledge in different formats and modes. And finally, boosting productivity and engagement. Automation means you can create robots or bots that do the work that you don't want to do. That means you can handle more work with less effort and free up your staff, your team, yourselves for that more high value, client facing strategic work. Essentially, automate the parts that are repeatable and scalable so you can turn around things faster and use that extra time on providing value to your clients. Before I hand back to Tom and Will to show you the tools in action, what I wanted to do was just to share some use cases to get you thinking, what are the specific problems that you might solve or that law firms want to solve? There are some areas that jump out to us time and time again because they are so well suited to automation. But what I also love is speaking to my customers and seeing the novel applications in the things that they want to do. Some of the key ones that come out to us include kind of client acquisition, so business development or growth, lead generation for some firms, all the way through to working in various practice groups on improving workflows and automating the ways they engage with clients in the course of matters. And then also in admin, operations, back office, corporate services, doing the things to make the firm run more smoothly and allowing staff to engage in that capacity in a more smooth way. So just a little bit of food for thought. And with that, I might hand back to Tom and to Will to show you some of these tools in action.
Thanks, Erica. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate those insights. I have a bunch of questions for you, but I'm going to save my questions for the dedicated Q&A section. A reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, please throw them into the chat and we will try to get to them at the end. But for now, Will, you and I are going to take over for the next few minutes and share some of your experiences and even some of your tools. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a moment so we can chat. And then we'll get into a couple of Josef tools that you have built. You can tell the audience about those. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you've integrated those tools with Actionstep and the impact that that has had.
Yes.
Before we get into any of that, first, welcome. Thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about your firm. Tell us about Phillips Wilkins. I love talking to you about this, and I loved you telling me about, I mean, from your perspective, how kind of unlikely it is that you would be a leader in automation, but here we are.
Yeah, so Phillips and Wilkins, we're sort of your classic high street law firm. We're even on a high street, been around since 1932. Do lots of matters for sort of private clients, lots of conveyancing, wills, estates, commercial work, litigation. Yes, that's sort of the areas. So we've 8 lawyers. So obviously an older firm, sort of, I think we're the oldest firm on High Street in the High Street in the north of Melbourne. But we've embraced technology. We do have some younger leadership. I've been a partner of the firm for the last nearly 6 years. And yeah, we're certainly open to technology that works for us and works for our clients. I think it's important to stay abreast of these things and use what works, basically.
Agree. Using what works, I think, is a good theme for today. Um, why did you start, though? Why did you start exploring automation? What was I suppose, the catalyst for you thinking to yourself, yep, this is something that our firm needs to start doing?
So I'm not quite sure. Yeah, so came across Joseph, and then it was really sort of a use case that led to us picking it up. We were, yeah, I think we'd been reconsidering sort of our conveyancing process. I think it might have been around the time it was sort of electronic execution of contracts had sort of come in. Obviously, PEXA had come in a few years before that, and we were early onto PEXA, which had probably sort of got us sort of thinking about the way that we actually did conveyancing. And yeah, it was basically the vendor questionnaire, which is, something that every firm that does property transactions deals with. How many questions you ask your clients? It's obviously a bit of a chore for the clients to complete. I mean, I'm aware some firms the forms can be 10 pages long, other firms it's only 2 or 3, but it can be difficult to draw the line. In the past, it was something that was, would have originally been posted out to clients to handwrite and then send back, and then emailing PDFs or Word documents to be completed and then sent back. And yeah, we thought the Joseph chatbot when we first started, would be a great solution for that. And so that's what we signed up with Joseph to use, and then that was the first bot that we built.
Cool. That makes sense. I mean, just for everyone listening, I think the key takeaway there is that it was use case driven. There's a problem that you identified pretty clearly by the sounds of things. It was a clunky process. Clients were presumably sending you back incomplete forms, and I think we all know what it's like to get an email that's missing its attachment, and then they send the wrong attachment the next time, and we've all had that experience. And so it sounds to me like this was a way to improve both the experience for your clients and also the experience for your firm of automating a particular process.
Yes, and I would say as far as that, it's a benefit for both parties. Often in various service, when you're a customer or using a service or a client, you might be doing something that's not necessarily sort of in your interest, but it might help the business. But I think this was something that helps everybody. It's not that we're sort of pushing work onto the client. We have to get the information from them somehow until we improve the way of getting it. And also, I would say, we act for everyone from, young adults through to people in their 90s. And so we meet the client where they're at. I mean, probably the majority of our clients do the Joseph bot, and we send it through to them, but we still have clients that come through and fill it in on paper, and that's okay. You've got to work with everybody. Obviously, most people do prefer the convenience of something they can do through their computer at any time. But yeah, it's important to provide a service to all of your clients, which is the service that they need.
We really experienced that too. I think that's actually a really important point, that just because you've automated something doesn't mean that you have to drive 100% of your clients or your traffic through that particular thing. I think often as lawyers, and my background, even though I didn't introduce myself, or my background is as a lawyer, we can create friction for ourselves, letting, perfect be the enemy of the good. And we think, well, if this isn't going to solve 100% of my clients' problems 100% of the time, well, then I shouldn't even do it. I shouldn't even get started. But in fact, the greatest impact is often going to be from those, 80-20 tools, the ones that 80% of your clients can use, even if 20% can't, because those are the ones that truly deliver value now and can free up your time to spend on the more valuable work, on the work that you want to be doing. Will, I really appreciate the kind of pragmatic perspective on all of this, the kind of, just do it because there's a use case and clients use it and it has a positive impact on the firm. How, though, do you know that it's actually working? As in, how do you think about measurement or impact at your firm for determining that the automation efforts were actually a good idea in the first place?
Yeah, so certainly when we first deployed it, we were obviously keeping quite close track of the numbers and obviously getting feedback from people as they did it. We obviously, maybe not quite answering your question. We did a lot of testing, but it's not till, and especially because this is a fairly complicated form. Once we got it out there and clients were actually completing it, we initially made, continued sort of refining it. And at that point, we were keeping track on how many people were doing it, and the take-up rate was quite high. And then as time went on, it was clear the benefit then, and so we've continued doing it. We haven't sort of continued. It's not a sort of a statistic that we've continued sort of referring back to the precise number of people that are completing it, as opposed to people who might be writing back and saying, "Oh no, send me something else to complete." But yeah, it was a matter of we knew how many conveyancing files we were doing, and we just kept a track on the number of people that were completing the bot, which was pretty easy in Joseph, and that was what we had. That's how we measured it. There's nothing too complicated about it, but it was, yeah.
Cool. I'm going to reshare my screen now because very generously you agreed to share a couple of examples of the tools that you have built. And so we're going to talk about a couple of those now. I'm going to start by sharing a particular tool well, actually, I'm going to let you talk about it. Will, tell us what we're seeing on screen. What is this for? When do you send it out to clients? What's the background?
Yeah, so this is a newer bot we developed. We've been thinking about it for a while, but as it is with getting things done, but it's for wills. So it's basically a questionnaire for clients who to fill in before we meet with them to discuss estate planning. We wanted to do it as a fairly simple form because, again, we didn't want to put people off too much, doing too much work before coming and meeting with us. But it's for collecting all of that information you need for estate planning, full names of the client, their spouse or partner if they've got one, children, excuse me, and then assets, how they're owned, if there's any companies and trusts, that information that you would be collecting during that initial meeting with the client. But if you have that information in a nice document before you meet, you can sort of get into discussing estate planning, saves time, and also saves incorrectly spelt names in draft documents, which is I think the number one mistake you can make is spelling your own client's name wrong, if you want someone to lose faith in you. So
You've obviously never done that though.
no, never.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not always a happy conversation when you spell someone's name wrong. Because if you can't spell their name wrong,
Understood. And so just to be clear, this is a tool that your clients are using directly.
Yes, yeah. So the bots all of the bots that we're using are all client facing. So this is one we send out to a client. You make an appointment, make an appointment to for estate planning. We send this to complete beforehand.
Got it. Okay, really great, really simple example. I'm going to switch focus now to the other tool that I think you already mentioned. So this sounds like it was the original tool that you built on Joseph, but probably iterated on many times.
Many times, yeah. So because this is the vendor questionnaire. So it's collects a lot of information, obviously, because it's built through Joseph. I mean, this is one of the things about what Joseph that first appealed to us was that it's conditional answers, and so the client, depending on how they respond to drop downs, there's information you don't need to collect, and so you don't collect it, or if it's commercial property, you collect further information. So it saves people filling in information that may not be necessary, or if you've got a form you send to someone that has half the questions aren't relevant, it saves that time for the client, so it responds to how their answers. And also, so Tom, were you going to touch on the fact that this one is linked to Actionstep? Is that something we're referring to later?
It sounds like you want to touch on that, Will.
Yeah. So anyway, this was the thing that this was the really sort of whiz bang thing we're very pleased with is, so we had the vendor questionnaire going for a few years, and we'd been on Actionstep since 2018, linking it linking the bot to Actionstep was just a fantastic step as far as saving time for our staff. Is client completes the form, and then the information flows through into the Actionstep matter, client details, property information, all flows into the metadata, and then staff can check it and then go ahead with preparing documents based on that information, and just saves the client's already keyed the information in. We don't have to key it in again, and it works really well. Obviously, the process of setting it up is fairly involved because there's a lot of information, but it works really well, and saves our conveyancing staff a lot of time.
And I mean, ultimately, I feel like that is one of the measures of success. We want to know it's good for clients, and that their feedback is positive, and we also want to know that it is good for our staff, and ultimately good for making your law firm more successful in all the ways that we want it to be. I had one more question for you before I'm going to let you go until we return to Q&A. One of the things that Erica mentioned was that doing this type of automation is actually a way to enable more time to spend on client engagement. It makes those interactions with clients kind of more meaningful because you're not spending your time filling out a form together. Has that been true for you? Do you think that's something that you get to experience?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, filling in a form together is not something you want to do. Obviously, if you're speaking with a client about filling in a form, it's because they need your assistance to do so. And so, yeah, it's just a waste. It's time that you could be better spent on discussing the legal matters. Could be spent working on the high level aspects of the matter, or dealing with the client in a better way, because you can just talk about the legal issues. You don't have to talk about filling in, what services are connected to your property. What do you mean by that? In the questionnaire, you can put in prompts, you can put in some explanation about why people are asking, and that's definitely something that, while we're asking questions, that's definitely something that different iterations worked on. So it just saves time for doing better things.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that has been your experience. Will, I'm going to come back to you with some questions that I have, but for now, I'm going to switch our attention back to learning some more from our panelists. Thanks so much, Will. Zahn, I'm going to hand over to you in just a minute, but I wanted to make the point that Will was making about using automation or using Josef and Actionstep together and the impact that had had a little bit clearer. This is an infographic that we like to share with people who are interested in this, to help paint the picture of what it actually looks like to have an automated end-to-end process. So you might have, and this is kind of a generic example, apparently for Margot Robbie. You start off by sending out a Josef bot that asks all of the questions that you need to ask a client in order to kickstart a matter. Maybe it's for a will, maybe it's for a conveyancing, a property matter, maybe it's for an employment agreement. It sort of doesn't matter, right? That first experience is, how do we get all of the information that we need? Then we take that information and we send it through to, in this case, Actionstep, to create a new matter, and ensure that matter has all of the data that's available to it. Now, you could be using any practice management system that is capable of handling this kind of workflow. But I will say that one of the reasons that we're highlighting Josef and Actionstep today is because Actionstep is really good at this. This is what it's set up for. So you send it through to Actionstep, it creates a new contact, it creates a new matter, it adds all of the information that needs to be added to the matter. Once the user has completed all of the information, you can then do lots of things, right? You can trigger workflows in Actionstep, you can generate a full suite of documents that might have you 99% of the way there to sending work product out to a client. there are so many different steps that we can then trigger. And then the best part about this is that if that client comes back the next time, if there's another matter that they want to engage you on, as soon as they start interacting with the Josef bot, it's going to automatically pull in all of the information it has about that client from Actionstep to then pre-fill all of the fields that it possibly can in the bot. And so you're kind of building up the effectiveness of your automation over time by enabling that integration. Zahn, I'm going to let you talk with significantly more experience than me about what it means to build that tech stack, build that ecosystem. But I just wanted to make sure that that example that Will had given was a little bit more real for people, and the power of integrating automation with your practice management platform can offer to law firms. Over to you, Zahn.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it. And look, I think it'd be very hard for someone to put a case forward as to why to automate. There's so many areas within your practice that you'll be able to apply automation and, find those use cases that you've mentioned. And as you said, Will and his firm punching way above his weight by using so much automation, within his practice. But one of the big things that is always a big question is like, well, how do you get started? And, creating a tech ecosystem involves more than just adapting or adopting tools. It's about building system relationships, integrating technologies, and then aligning with a shared vision for innovation and growth. Now, as Erica mentioned, actually, that some of the stats from our 2025 report said that 71% of those mid-sized law firms, that improving client satisfaction was a top priority for them. Now, even with tight budgets, these firms are looking to stand out. And that's not by cutting corners, but that's by delivering exceptional client service. And one of the key strategies for them and how they're doing it is investing in the right technology foundation. One that's secure, it's connected, and it's built to enhance the client service. Now, many of you might have heard from terms such as tech stack and tech ecosystems, but what's the actual difference between these two? Tech stack is simply the collection of tools and software your firm uses. So think email, document management, case management, AML checks, etc. Now, most firms, when they go down this path, they didn't actually design their tech stack with an actual strategy in mind. So instead, these tools were added as problems came up, leading to patch systems that don't always talk to each other. Now, contrast with that is the tech ecosystem. And when we refer to a tech ecosystem, it's a system that is purposefully integrated with a set of tools that share data seamlessly. It automates routine tasks. It supports the end-to-end workflows. And it frees up your staff to focus on that higher valued work, that client engagement work that we've touched on earlier. So it strikes that right balance between automation and the human effort. But the real kicker is that you won't actually see the full value of AI or automation or other exciting innovations until this ecosystem is in place and until your systems are connected and your data flows smoothly between these environments. Now, when that happens, you're in a position to address the challenges that Erica mentioned earlier and allow you to truly deliver that client satisfaction goals that you have and be part of that 71% of firms. Now, if we look at an actual example set up here, the question that we get asked all the time is, what should we actually be looking for in a tech ecosystem? And maybe more importantly, where do we start? So here's an example of a truly integrated tech ecosystem, what we've seen work really well across thousands of firms. So first, you start with one core system that can do most of what you need. Now, this usually ends up being the practice management system for most firms. Then you look at adding complementary tools that fill in key functionality gaps, say, as an example, like a document management system. And then finally, you add some best-in-class one-point solutions that integrate seamlessly, like Josef. Now, another big challenge for firms is actually how do you actually pick the right tech? So what are the steps that you can take to building your tech ecosystem and getting the foundation right to adding in automation? Now, we've got loads of information, a lot of detail about this, but I'll just share some of the 7 steps and just a quick overview on a few of them. So firstly, we say to firms, list all the platforms, all the tools, all the software, and all the hardware solutions that you currently use, and then prioritize them based on their importance in the growth management of the firm, the legal practice management aspects, and business management in general. Then identify some of those pain points. Now, law firms often stack up multiple point solutions that serve single purposes, leading to complexity and inefficiency, and not to mention cost. It can be expensive. So examine your current tech stack for pain points that are affecting you and your team. Then start evaluating it, because a cohesive tech stack contains fully integrated tools that share data, automate tasks, and supports the workflows with minimum manual intervention. So identify those functional gaps and areas that you can enhance. And one of the key things actually is that when you assess these solutions, assess it against a ecosystem characteristics. Now, your legal practice management system forms the base of your tech stack, as we've said, forms about 90% of the function your firm needs. And then you've got the integrated best-in-class point solutions to fill in those gaps. So when we talk about the tech ecosystem and the characteristics, it will show some very common themes. So it will streamline data, or it will streamline the data sharing aspect. It can scale for growth and complexity. It adapts to change, and it's able to demonstrate a lot of automation within the firm that actually improves efficiency. And then finally, carefully select your legal practice management solutions and your platforms, and the innovative tools that you feel will integrate seamlessly, share the data, and work together to accomplish those firm goals. I think for me, the key takeaway, like a final key takeaway for this is make sure that you take the time, investigate it properly, and put some effort in to pick the right tech to support you. Tom, I think that's it from me, and I'll hand that back to you.
Thanks, Zahn. I really appreciate that. So many pearls of wisdom in there. All right, everyone. We are going to do a little bit of Q&A now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Happily, there have been many, many, many questions sent through while everyone has been presenting, which is a great place for us to start. So I'm going to stop sharing and make sure that all of our panelists are highlighted for now. Will, there's one that's coming at you to get us started. Can you speak to the audience a little bit about how using these automation tools affects your fees to clients? As in, does it save time, which means that you bill less or more, or how do you think about the economic impact of automation?
Well, I guess our approach, we think about it, is the time that it takes for the file, the time it saves for the file operator, and if it's half an hour or half an hour per file or something like that, it's pretty easy to extrapolate from that what your what the economic impact is. We certainly haven't. It hasn't really impacted on the way that we price the different services that we provide. As far as conveyancing and wills, matters like that, I mean, it's really, we're part of a market, and you try to meet the market price. And that's the tools that we use are certainly a factor in being able to sort of price your files as you'd like, but it's not. We haven't particularly delved into exactly relating it, what the work time it saves, and then saying, oh, well, we'll price the matter type accordingly. I think there's sort of other factors that probably decide that for
you. Are you doing this kind of work on a fixed or capped fee basis?
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, exactly.
So the time saved, yeah.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, conveyancing, you provide a quote. It's a fixed fee service, and so any time you can save is directly beneficial to the firm.
Got it, because the time saved plays out as essentially more margin in the work.
Precisely.
Cool. I mean, I think that's a very direct answer to one of the questions that we got.
Yeah. Tom, actually, I just on that, just a thought on it is that I actually feel that there's more consistent, more quality of work, more engaging work that you do. So I think there's a lot of justification for the pricing and the structure that it is. I mean, never mind the fact all the time and cost and effort spent for the firm to implement those automation tools, which is never billable and on charge to customers. So I don't see that as hey, it should be affecting your billing model.
Cool. I appreciate that, Zahn. While you've got the microphone,
I shouldn't have done that.
I kind of related question. I've got a couple of questions in here about, I'm not going to name names actually, about difficulties that some people are having with with integrating existing or legacy practice management software with point solutions. How you must hear this as a problem for some people. I suppose, how do you help them think through that problem and what they can do about it?
Yeah, look, I think that one of the biggest challenges is limitation in technology in the solution that's in place currently. There's only so much that you can do with it. If our platform has been designed to have what's called open APIs, which allows best of breed pinpoint solutions to integrate with us. So we can open up our API, connect with their API, and then the magic really happens, and we can really be very strategic on what endpoints are open and what can we integrate with. If unfortunately the technology doesn't provide you to do that, you are pretty much stuck with that technology and the limitations that's within that framework and what they've built. I would most probably say if there is pinpoint solutions on the market that firms are really interested in exploring, is to speak to those providers and find out what other options they have that they integrate with and that they work with. There are ways for firms to build standalone one-off integrations for those type of platforms for historical legacy systems, but it's very restrictive still. It's very limited. And also going back to that tech ecosystem of expanding and growing and being flexible, you're always going to have those limitations. So that is most probably the trigger point of looking at different technology, to be honest.
Sorry, Zahn, just because we have so many people on the call with different levels of technical experience, what is the question that you want to ask your provider to determine whether it can or can't? So you mentioned a phrase, open APIs, which I'm familiar with, but what's the simple question that you can ask your provider to say, can you help me with this thing?
Do you provide the flexibility to allow me to integrate with other best of breed solutions?
Cool.
Do you allow me that flexibility?
Yeah. And I think that's a great plain English way of asking the question, and really useful for people who might not be across all of the jargon. Erica, there's actually another theme here that a few people have asked, which is Will's tools were very impressive. How does it involve coding? Essentially, how hard is it? We're a small. I'm looking at a few of these. We're a small firm. How hard is it? Is this realistic? That type of thing. What are your reflections? I mean, you work with our new customers on that exact problem.
Great. And I'd love to throw to Will because he's the one who built his own tools as well for the build experience. But from my perspective, working with new customers, Josef is no code. So there is no coding. There is no back end sort of technical, I guess, capability required to create Josef tools, to set them up, to maintain them, to update them. And particularly the maintenance and update and continual iteration is something we work with and speak to our customers about all the time. I think, the other, I think, angle I'd sort of add to that is Josef also provides a legal tech service for those firms who don't want to build at all or want to hand over to us to accelerate the builds. And what I find in firms in sort of the mid-sized space is some will do all of it entirely on their own because they want to develop capability in that space or have people who are interested. Others will brief into us or outsource to Josef, and others yet will work somewhere along the spectrum where they build capability iteratively and cumulatively while briefing ever more complex tools out to us so that we can help them build and learn at the same time. So the short answer is it's not difficult to get started. You can do some really complex things that we can help you with, and it doesn't involve coding. Now, that said, some of the integration work, depending on the complexity of the integration, might require us to assist you, and we would work with you to figure that out. But Josef and Actionstep at least have a out-of-the-box integration that gives you access immediately to some of the push and pull. And then if you want more custom and bespoke fields and workflows, we can scope that with you and figure out what you want to do.
Got it. Thanks, Erica. We are pretty much at time, but Will, I'm going to throw one last question to you because I think it's an interesting one. It's sort of as a half technical, half non-technical aspect. One is, how do you get consent from your clients to use these tools? That's half of the question. Then the other half of the question is, how do you make sure that clients that are using these tools in a way that pulls information in from Actionstep don't accidentally pull someone else's information in from Actionstep?
I can answer the first part. So it's in the costs agreement, and then also when we send an email out to a client, it's in the text of the email, and they click the link to open the Josef tool, and then that's where we get their consent.
Right.
So it's just in the body of email, in the body of the email, depending on if the matter's already open, our cost agreement deals with it in general across the board for all matters about the tools that we use. And then as far as pulling information, the tools we use just go into Actionstep. We don't pull any information out of Actionstep for our tools. So
got it.
Question I cannot answer. Not
a problem, Will. We can definitely dive into that one with whoever asked that question if you want to get deeper into the technicalities of how those types of integrations work. I'm not going to let us go too far over time, so I'm going to wrap things up. But I did want to say a very, very big thank you to our panelists, to Will Elder, to Zahn Nel, and to Erica Zhong. You guys were amazing. The answers to questions that our audience offered on the fly were really, really great. Your presentations were interesting. I think that there are some key takeaways from here that we can all learn from, especially around building for the future of your law firm, that tech ecosystem approach, thinking really strategically about what it actually takes to set yourself up for success. And then also just some of that get started mentality from Will. If you've got a use case and it's the right use case, there is nothing holding you back right now. If you have any more questions, I know that there's going to be an email that goes around to everyone who came and everyone who registered with some more information so that you can get in touch with the right person, with the right one of us, if you want to have a follow-up conversation. But for now, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, the rest of your week. Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. And goodbye.